And welcome to episode 2 of On the Money, brought to you by Ask Paul. I am very excited to be joined today by David Hall from mortgageholders.ie. And I'm going to jump straight into David, introduce him to you guys. And I suppose the reason I'm doing this video is, and this interview in particular, is to let people know that out there that may be struggling with mortgages or may have a little bit of a hangover. There still are a lot of other options. And myself and David are going to discuss those options today in plain English to give you people watching the video today a feel that you can have an option and go somewhere. David, thanks very much for coming in.
No problem.
Much appreciated. Delighted to have you here and I suppose pick your brains on a couple of matters. So sometimes at Ask Paul we get a lot of questions from people asking us what can they do to win a mortgage arrears. A lot of people think out there that the country's back, it's doing well, the figures are up, but there's still a lot of people out there that are struggling. And your recent submission to the Oireachtas Committee, you mentioned that you've helped 10,000 families, which is a phenomenal amount of families. And you mentioned as well, you did double it, families. It's not just houses, it's people in houses with families. You've helped 10,000 people since 2012, which is amazing. So I suppose we just dive in straight away and see what are the options for people, David, should they be still struggling with mortgages or have a history of maybe a bit of arrears still there or it's been restructured. Take us through the options.
So I think the main thing you say, Paul, is these are families. There's humans, unfortunately, and publicly we hear about figures being spoken about. We hear about houses being spoken about. The central bank, the banks, all academically speak about solutions. In a general sense, they speak about houses. They don't speak about humans. And many people watching will understand this is a very personal issue. It's a very embarrassing issue for some. There's still a massive stigma attached to it. Many people still are not answering letters or not opening posts or under immense pressure. So it's still a live issue. But there are still solutions that are available. So despite going along so many years down the line, many think, well, there's no point in me getting involved now. I've missed the boat. I've not bothered getting involved. And actually, if I do get involved, I'm going to get crucified for not having engaged up to now. That's not right.
Okay.
Ultimately, there's 4 categories of solutions. You still have informal solutions where banks have loans and mortgages that are in arrears, where they will still offer split mortgages, where they'll park some at no interest. Bank of Ireland will charge a small bit of interest, and then they'll split the mortgage, giving you an option to pay down part of it. Some people don't like that. I'm liking it less in recent times because it was a good solution at the time, and big numbers were done at the time by banks to tick boxes of the central bank. It's still available. If you only have no other debt and you just have a mortgage debt, it's still a good option. But moving towards the insolvency service has began in 2012. It was revised in 2015. It's a privatised system, which the structural system of the insolvency regime I hate. It shouldn't have been done like that. MABs should have been given the job of being personal insolvency practitioners on a public basis for the entire country. A big opportunity was lost there. But what's happened in recent years, and most importantly in the last 12 months, some personal insolvency arrangements dealing with family home mortgages have been decided by the court, where personal insolvency practitioners, very good able-bodied personal insolvency practitioners, have made proposals to creditors, including banks. The banks have turned them down. The appeal mechanism has been introduced, which brings the PIP back into court to appeal the bank's decision to decline their option, and the bank has upheld the decision on behalf of the debtor and the PIP. And some of those structures reset the mortgage down to open market value. In some circumstances, resets the mortgage lower than that. A very big development in a case called Dunn is that for separated borrowers, of which I'm sure we're all experiencing a lot more separated borrowers, makes it very difficult when 2 parties are on a loan. It isolates, in this instance, the lady and allows her pay down her mortgage independently of her separated partner. So insolvency is becoming far better in recent months.
It's evolved, I suppose, from when it was first introduced.
And it's just annoying that, given its evolution, that it wasn't done on a more widespread basis where more not-for-profit organisations, including MABs and others, weren't given the tools and the infrastructure to do this properly.
Is there a certain amount of privatisation around that would you feel the reason it didn't go to MABs was not looking too back in the past, but was from a monetary point of view, that even though all these people were in a bad state of affairs, that there was still people making a little bit of money and decisions were pushed down, allowed them to push the decisions that needed to be done by the bank down the road a bit longer? What's your...
Well, not to be crude, but if you've, go into it's like handing out cigarettes in a hospice. People are in debt. You've privatised an insolvency regime to get people out of indebtedness, where the primary motivation has to be commercially. Now, I know a dozen excellent PIPs that I go to personally. There's 110 to 130 on the system. That's a false number. It gives false hope. There's only half a dozen who are acting competently. I would far prefer to be paying those PIPs and funding their entire operation and MABs
Yeah.
to have done this properly if the intention was right.
Just to explain, Dave, as well, for those that maybe have had their head buried in the sand, which does happen with a lot of people with debt, a PIP, just to very quickly introduce the concept of PIP if you don't mind to the viewers.
So a personal insolvency practitioner is a regulated professional whose sole purpose is to act independently between a bank and all creditors and a debtor to try and come up with a formal arrangement that's court produced. Now, as part of that process, sometimes informal arrangements evolve. They don't all have to go through a court process or a formal process. It might be decided by everybody. Actually, back to the split, that's a standalone gig you might just want on your own. There's no need to complicate matters. But in the vast majority of cases, they will proceed to a formal insolvency arrangement that's court endorsed, court appointed over a 5-year or longer period, where monthly payments are made that are distributed among all of your creditors. And the PIP then has a fee in that, and it resolves all of your indebtedness, and the primary purpose of it is to return you to solvency. So it was a very creative piece of legislation. We all had a bit of a go at it, myself included at the time, because we didn't feel don't feel it gave the proper tools, having a public insolvency regime around it. The Act was great. The bank's intent, by the way, has been clear. Banks have objected to it. They've challenged it. They've legally challenged parts of the Act. They've done as bankers do and creditors and vulture funds do. They act despicably, yet that's not been recognised enough. So the full tool of armoury wasn't put around it, but the personal insolvency practitioner is a key independent professional who's independently regulated by the Insolvency Service of Ireland. There's not enough good PIPs is part of the challenge. It is a privatised course. It is only a 5-day course. Some are far more creative than others, and some are far better than others. And from our perspective, if they want to contact us, we have a number of PIPs in-house, and we'll also recommend... We'll also recommend, which we believe, and do so unashamedly, whom we believe to be the best PIPs around. So the question some people ask me is, who would you go to? Same as I would ask any of my medical friends, who would you go to if you need something? I'll tell you who I'll go to.
Right, very good. So I suppose if anyone's watching this video, head in the sand, or maybe they've thought about this in the past, or trying to get their act together, mortgageholders.ie is the first place to go to, really, in fairness.
David at mortgageholders.ie is my email address. So they can email me. We have a team of 13 people who do nothing else all day, but engage with creditors, engage with banks all day, seeking solutions. The key objective here is to seek solutions. We will listen to you and have a conversation. We'll give out about the bank with you. But after we all get that off our chest, we have to get into the system of engaging. But the most important part for people who want to engage with us are indeed, they've got backontrack.ie, which is the Insolvency Service website. There's MABs and there's Phoenix Project in Portlaoise. There's any number of people out there to help. We talk, we share information, and we consult with each other. So every opportunity is given to you to resolve things. We'll give out. We'll have a bit of a pop, as I do publicly and privately, but ultimately at the end of the day, there is a firm process that has allowed 10,000 families be helped, and we will eventually get there with you. Also, one of the most important features is, if they contact ourselves and others, once they give us authority to act on their behalf, they don't have to call the bank again. We will do that for them, and the bank will engage with us.
So it takes an awful lot of stress off people's plates, maybe relationships, and just allow people kind of move on a little bit now that somebody professionals looking after knows what they're doing.
And they just breathe, just breathe. The next solution that's now becoming a lot more prominent, where we, had set up about 18 months ago, iCare Housing, which is an approved housing body, another charity, which I run on a voluntary basis. We have a board there, which is icarehousing.ie. It was designed purposely for people who are eligible for social housing, have a mortgage, can't pay their mortgage, absolutely will lose their home. There's nothing sure in the world. If you're eligible for social housing, you don't have the capacity to make normal restructuring payments, and therefore you're going to lose your home. So the plan was, under the government's mortgage to rent scheme, which was horrifically administered over the last 6 years, but a great idea. We said we'll bring the two parts to the table, which is the debtor representative component and the approved housing body to buy the house. So in recent times now, we bought 47 houses. We've 22 houses next month we're going to buy, where the customers relinquish ownership of the house back to the bank. They surrender the home. Their debt is written off. They stay as social housing tenants, where the local authority pays us a rent for 25 years, and the customers assessed under social housing rents, and they pay us rent as well. And they have an option to buy back the house at the price we pay for it over the next 25 years. And after 25 years, if you're still eligible...
It's an amazing solution, really, what I'm trying to say.
When understood properly, it is a phenomenal solution.
Losing their home, which
no
is amazing.
Legal proceedings dropped,
no
for sale sign, no repossession proceedings, no residual debt.
Embarrassment, we spoke with this here, a lot of people's feelings over the camera.
Massive difference, and pressure, and their kids protected, stay in the community, themselves as single people, no matter what it is, no embarrassment, stay in your community as it is. We maintain the repairs, you do your basic repairs, we do any of the significant repairs, and if your circumstances change, you buy the house back from us at the price we pay for it, irrespective of the value over the next 25 years.
It's amazing. It's a really, really clever idea, and it's great to see so many people have gone through it.
And we've 700 in the pipeline approved. We've 47 bought, and it'll onboard about 22 every 6 weeks for the next while. Some properties can't be done, they've got thatched roofs, there's a few difficulties and challenges, but again, come to MABS, come to ourselves, or come to the IMHO, and we will go through the process and handhold you through the process with you. Perfect.
Okay, well look, that's amazing. I will encourage everybody who's watching this video, or anyone who's watching this video that's in that circumstances, to make sure you do reach out to David and the team, and we'll put all the details at the end of the video. David, let's start having a pop. My favourite part of these interviews.
Yeah,
let's go for
have some water first.
Yeah, I'll join you.
There's only water.
Yeah, let's go for the Vulture's Fund. The Vulture Funds first, rather. So we've seen this incredible explosion of Vulture Funds over the last number of years in Ireland. Swoop in. We get a lot of people, again, through as Paul said, we got this letter in the post from the bank saying they're selling on, haven't had any communication 6 months or 9 months. Although we all know the Vulture Fund aren't a great thing, I think the way that people are being treated is probably even the first part that is annoying people, pissing them off in the beginning, in that they don't know, they're in limbo, and they get a letter one day and go. So maybe just talk us through.
I'll start controversially by actually saying in favour of the Vulture Funds.
Okay.
They've actually done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
So it's very important to acknowledge the Vulture Funds actually have done nothing wrong, and that's very important because to create an environment in a country where, going back historically, where Michael Noonan with IBRC, where the bank was taken over by the state, and the state controls that sale, to encourage Vulture Funds to bring them into the country to sell to those Vulture Funds.
Yeah.
And what's even more despicable about that relationship was they didn't just sell people who were in arrears. And the whole public narrative that's been made by politicians and by government and by banks is to demonise those in arrears and put them into a category of all being strategic defaulters.
Yeah.
If you look at IBRC's loan sale, 7,000 were paying customers and never missed the payment. So that's where the lies began.
Yeah.
And 65 meetings were held by Minister Noonan with Vulture Funds, and this is all on public record, and 5 were held with what we would call advocates of people trying to help. And that shows the disparity between the relationship that's there, and that's where it all began. So Vulture Funds, look at any of their websites, their general narrative is we come into countries where there's a major debt problem, we buy debt cheap, and we sell high and move out.
Yeah.
The part they don't do, that they publicly state they don't do, is we don't restructure loans.
Yeah.
Banks have restructured 116,000 mortgages. They provided a variety of solutions. Some aren't great, some are okay, but nonetheless, they don't have to do it. They've done 116,000.
Yeah.
The difference is, out of the 116,000, the simple question has never been asked by a competent politician is, how many restructures do the Vulture Funds do? And when you get to a point of being 1 or 2 or 0, you should be concerned.
Yeah.
So Vulture Funds are despicable. Yeah. They are predators. They not only just pick on the carcasses of dead people, they're actually picking on the carcasses of alive people.
Yeah.
So you're throwing people to vultures, and you're throwing families and feeding them to vultures alive. Yeah. You're not even giving them the courtesy of them being dead. Yeah. You're voluntarily feeding them when they're alive. So Vulture Funds are a massive impediment to resolution of people in the state. The banks will say they're a necessary evil. They were tolerated because they bought commercial loans initially. Yeah. Now they're buying family homes. Yeah. They benchmark their value based on the collateral value of the property. That's how they bid on properties. And they want you out of the property. And they require you to pay full mortgage arrears. They tell you this. Like, they're not hiding. They're not lying. No, they're not being sneaky about it. That's what makes it worse when you've got vulture lovers making stupid comments about saying some of the old vultures are good. Vultures aren't good. And the Oireachtas committee, where I was there 2 weeks ago, I presented the committee in advance of a number of examples. I said, when ministers and the Taoiseach and others make comments about Vulture Funds being good, when it's factually incorrect, I have no problem having a row with someone about a difference of opinion. Yeah. I've actually a problem having a row with lies. Yeah. And when, say, Start Mortgages and Pepper, where the two I gave examples of a shoreline at the Oireachtas committee, won't accept offers from us, from iCare, on a house that they've bought at a massive discount, where we need a 12% discount or an 8% discount to keep a family in their home. Yeah. A family who's eligible for social housing and one of the most vulnerable categories of all, and they decline that and move to repossess the house. Yeah. That's the despicable bastards you're dealing with. So anybody coming to me to say, oh, they're lovely, they're nice people, and they help, that's just lies. Now, to counteract that, people watching that is actually not really helpful. It's therapeutic for me, I love it. But actually somebody at home, go back to what you said earlier on, is looking at this, saying, how in the hell is God's name, this Hall fellow and others are telling me these fellas are bastards. How does that help me? Yeah. A number of great insolvency arrangements have happened recently that have nailed Vulture Funds. Okay. Have reduced interest rates, compelled them to reduce interest rates, When a vulture fund defends an insolvency arrangement, it has two big problems. Because it buys properties in a batch, it can never prove how much they've paid for a house. People go off, people's head gaskets go and say, they bought my house, so it's cheap. It's actually impossible to say how much they've ever bought your house for, because it's group houses. They also never declare how much they're borrowing to buy that.
Okay. So
you nail them when it comes to an insolvency arrangement. One of the biggest attacks on vulture funds in the future is going to be using the insolvency legislation, and some good pips have gotten some great successes with insolvency arrangements. So while I'll bash them and say they're despicable, there is a way to beat them.
Right, okay.
And there are solutions for them. So don't take an abuse about vulture funds and the therapy that bestows upon many people, some affected, some not affected, as being hands in the air and giving up. Far from it.
Yeah.
And over the coming weeks and months,
you're going to see more.
Not only will you see more, you will see an active campaign by me and others in relation to embarrassing vultures and agents that support vultures repossess family homes to ensure that other options are explored other than vultures.
Right, okay. I'd encourage anybody at this stage watching the video to make sure you go on to David's Twitter and Facebook, follow him, and maybe just support any of these things that are going to come in the next couple of weeks and months. I think it's important that as a society everybody gets behind, I suppose, leaders in change, which is definitely something David is. So I'd encourage everyone to make sure you check out and follow him on social media. David, when we're talking vultures, let's stay with the bird names. Let's go down to Cuckoo Funds. There's the latest one. So a Cuckoo Fund, take maybe viewers, or let's have a chat about Cuckoo Funds. What do we think of them, and how they operate first of all? Let's go how they operate first before we have our opinions.
I think in the current, it's very, very important to, when you're making comments on Cuckoo Funds, which are baby vultures, effectively. It's just a sexy name for a bird other than a vulture fund that someone has cleverly dropped into the media. That's what it is.
The media have taken it home with it, in fairness.
Yeah, it's
front-line headlines everywhere.
Everywhere, but ultimately, just you got to think, we've 10,000 people that are homeless. We've 90,000 plus on a social housing list. We've the most despicable statistic in the history of the state of 3,800 kids in emergency accommodation. That's why the definition of a cuckoo and everything else is ultimately relevant around that backdrop. Because under normal rules of engagement, a fund or a group or an organisation buying a block of apartments, that's a normal commercial transaction, like the block buy a building for commercial stuff. But in the context of having 28,000 people in mortgage arrears over 2 years, having 12,000 buy-to-let mortgages in arrears of more than 2 years, having the central bank say in its report last April that over 50% of those in mortgage arrears will lose ownership of their home. In that context, that's 16,000 families. That's 50,000 humans. We have mortgage arrears that's decreasing, but we have a mortgage arrears long term that's the most dangerous of all in the context of a homeless crisis. We have 10,000 people homeless, and the minister is jumping around, and people are running around commenting, saying this is a scandal, this is a crisis. We have in houses 28,000 people in mortgage arrears in more than 2 years. Forget what I'm saying. The central bank has said.
Central bank statistics or reports.
But they've also said that of the 28,000, over half will lose ownership of their home. That's 50,000 people, 5 times more than are currently homeless. So we've got no clue what's coming. So it's in that context that the Cuckoo Funds are vultures. Because in that context, there's hundreds of approved housing bodies, and today one of an alliance of larger approved housing bodies have come together to try and do some extra work, which is very welcome. But why didn't the state encourage the approved housing bodies as charities to buy those properties, rent them commercially, not socially, but curtail the rents? Because many people that are in mortgage difficulties are in a category of their own. They've got a house they can't pay for, but there are many others trying to rent. And as a direct result of these types of purchases, it distorts the market. And there seems to be a policy now of encouraging vultures of all shapes and sizes and colours to try and come in and swoop in and buy properties en masse. Large blocks of apartments, large development lands. O'Coolon, another housing body, did a purchase with Dublin City Council, who gave them land in Ballymun. They built a number of houses at 190 grand a pop. That's the model that works. Simplistic model that works. But allowing these vultures take large blocks of apartments, distort rent, increase rent, and control the rent market.
From a commercial point of view.
They're entitled to do it.
No, you said before, nobody minds the commercial point of view, nobody minds people making money. But when you have...
They've done nothing wrong.
No, nothing wrong at all. But when you have a situation with the housing problem, the mortgage arrears problem, the homeless problem, and the society full of problems. And here's when we stop at the supply issue. We have a supply issue, and that these Cuckoo Funds buying this is a great system because it's bringing supply back to the market, which is... chronology, I would think, because they're there anyway, they're being built by builders, and this whole kind of regime of build to rent, I don't have a massive problem personally with it, because renting is not a bad thing necessarily once the controls are in place. And I just think no one's taking part in the controls part.
No, I agree. Like, the supply thing annoys me, because since 2012, banks have had 1,500 empty properties on the books every quarter. They've repossessed and sold an average of 300 per quarter, but they still have today 1,600 empty houses. The Vulture Funds have the same. So you have 3,000 empty houses that were formerly homes of people who surrendered them or had them repossessed or voluntarily sold, gave them back to the bank or abandoned them in some circumstances, empty. And we've 10,000 people homeless. Now, that's just
doesn't make sense.
There's something wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And then in parallel with that, you have other properties that are empty, that are owned by local authorities, that are not being repaired. If you go up Drumcondra or Dorset Street, you'll see a number of flats and apartments that are empty and boarded up. There's inherent sickness about that. And then what I don't understand about vulture lovers and bank lovers and those who are sort of jump up and down and giving out about people getting something and getting something for free, it's costing them money. This is taxpayers' money that's funding. So remove all humans from it. Just say, they're only peasants.
Yeah.
They're all peasants. Forget them. I should be jumping up and down if I have that view, because actually it's my taxpayers' money that's contributing towards the most expensive housing solution in the world, which is putting people into... Forget them. Treat them like animals and dogs. I don't mind that. They're only peasants. Yeah. But actually, if I really cared like that, I should actually be jumping up and down saying, why in God's name have you 1,600 empty houses, you clowns? Empty, and we own 75% of two of the banks which own 80% of the 1,600 houses. Why are they empty, and why are you putting people into hotels? Forget the dignity, forget the torture, forget the inhumane conditions, forget all that, purely on a financial basis. Why are you screwing me in taxes and not doing this in an organised, cheap way? And that's the part that the vulture lovers and bank lovers should be jumping up and down about.
So David, on that, let's have a chat about what you think the solution may look like. I know it's probably impossible to give it in an interview of this style, but what would you do, if you were the housing minister tomorrow and you had to do three things? If you don't mind me asking that question, what would you do?
So during the Oireachtas Committee on Finance, we were asked a number of questions, and one of the questions that was asked the week before of AIB was about their willingness to engage in a project, which we're engaging with them, and we've gone on record as saying it is us. They didn't identify us, but it is us, around a very adventurous project to find out, can a charity buy loans instead of a vulture fund? Should have happened 5 years ago. This experiment should have happened. It may work, it may not work. I'm positively engaged that it will work. So the question has never been asked of those people, the banks, properly, is how many people have engaged with you, how many have given you financial information, and whom you can't help. They ultimately will all lose their homes. That's probably the 16,000 families we think the central bank have done. They've never acknowledged it publicly, but that's probably that group of people. So number one priority is every effort should be made to encourage an option that a charity buys loans and radically restructures those loans, keep people in their homes. No one's getting a free house here. But it is reprehensible that a vulture fund could buy a loan on a house that might be a loan of 300 grand and a house worth 250,000, where Johnny and Mary can't restructure the loan at 250,000, but could at 150,000, and the vulture fund will buy it for 100,000. That's reprehensible. When someone's
doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
And that should be encouraged, number one. Number two is those messers repossess their houses and get on with it. I'm not interested in messers. I have too many people who are under immense pressure, stressed out of their heads, not trying to play the system. The inference that's given is all these people are peasants, all these people are messers, they're strategic defaulters. That's just lies and factually incorrect. So much so that I'm confident enough the percentage is so low to turn around and say, for those that are messing, have a fast repossession process, knock yourself out. And that'll really rattle the system very clearly. The next part then is empty homes. The empty houses that are currently in the system need to be compulsorily purchased. A moratorium on repossessions of buy-to-lets and family homes. And as Peter McVerry says, we've got to remember there's 12,000 buy-to-lets in mortgage arrears in more than 2 years. And they are people's homes.
People's homes as well, the buy-to-lets.
We've always got to be very careful that people who are renting or dependent on renting, who may never get a mortgage. People aspire to get mortgages, but there are a number of people who just simply won't get a mortgage and are happy to rent. But they're sitting in vulnerable situations where funds have bought those loans. The loans have no protections. So the mortgage to rent will keep people in their homes who are eligible for social housing, and that needs to be developed further, and that's slow progress. And Minister Murphy's been heavily involved, and Damien English, in helping us with that, and I couldn't complain about their involvement in helping that. My personal view is it's easy to bash Owen Murphy. I can't, because what I've seen of them
Yeah.
personally
Great to hear.
has been positive. So
Yeah.
it's the populist thing.
Don't see that's great.
The populist thing is to have a go.
Because the media is the very easy place to be able to bash people publicly, which are very fond of doing this country too.
Yeah.
So it's great to hear.
No, I'm not
speak
interested in lying. So I've only seen positive engagement. If I engage with them or ask for something, it happens. I don't always get my own way. That's not life. That's life. Same with Damien English. They'll push back. The officials push back. We'll have a row. But ultimately, I can see an unwillingness to try and help us there. I do believe some of the officials in various departments are bad for ministers. I don't believe they advise them properly. But there's empty homes. There's homes and houses that can be compulsorily purchased.
Right.
Louth County Council, great system in compulsorily purchasing empty properties. Have done 20 or 30, not big numbers, but the intent is clear. Recirculate them back into housing.
Right.
So the mental health issues that are arising as a result of not just mortgage arrears, renting, homelessness, housing is massive.
Yeah.
And it's a massive stigma, it's a massive challenge that's happening with people. And we're back to humans. And you've got to understand and appreciate that there are human beings involved. Much of the commentary and much of those people who are bank lovers and vulture lovers don't understand humans because they're in a very privileged and comfortable position themselves. So we need people to fight their corner. My job is to fight the corner. Like, Paul, there's only 2 debt charities in the country. There's hundreds of housing associations. There's hundreds of cancer charities. There's hundreds of other charities. There's actually only 2 debt charities. That's not by coincidence. So it's not an easy area for people to operate in. It's not an easy area for people to manoeuvre, especially if you're in business, especially if you're doing business with banks yourselves. They do take things personally, and you do piss them off. So the most important features are there are solutions if there's a willingness. I'm not convinced the full political will exists, because there are basic solutions that could happen that would be easy to solve quickly.
Quickly as well.
And this is the worsening. This situation is worsening every day. The housing situation is worsening every day. Great organisations and great people within those organisations willing to help. If I was the minister, I'd be organising the 30, 40, 50 people to gather, no media, just themselves, to exchange ideas collectively on how solutions can be put in place to manoeuvre. But back to your cuckoos, you can't do that if in parallel you're allowing vultures swoop and take properties off the market.
Actually, most of these funds as well, so a lot of these companies, from a tax regime point of view as well, are putting back very little back into society as well. So that's back to your whole taxpayers, your back pocket. Taxpayers should be really concerned about that.
Well, to allow vulture funds saying, vulture funds are great and wonderful and they're destroying people's lives and torturing people and getting great deals. Like, why didn't the bank offer the same deal to the customer?
Well, like you said earlier on, the iCare solution that you brought to the marketplace is that if somebody does have the capability to buy the house back off you for the price you paid for it, that's
you're freezing their circumstances now.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, with the vulture funds are taking a lower discount than what you can pay for it, and just actually destroying the cost in the future.
And what incentive have you got to work? What incentive have you to contribute to society?
I did see a post recently, somebody else, especially not your own or mine, saying that it's the biggest land grab since the British were in town. And it kind of feels that way. Feels that there's an awful lot of property being bought by international companies, as we know, pure for profit, which is, again, not the worst thing in the world, people need to make money. But it's just being done under our noses and under the government's nose, and
there's no competence. There's
bad taste.
There's a lacking competence when it comes to solutions like this. You go back and I had this conversation with someone recently. Go back to even 2014 when we were in difficulty, and look at even City West.
Yeah.
City West Hotel was for sale at that time. Now, it's hard to visualise back 5 years, but there was a housing crisis, there was a homeless crisis, there was great difficulty. That was sold for €29 million, 900 bedrooms, 2 golf courses, and a helipad. But just purely from a commercial perspective, a competence perspective, well, why wouldn't the state engage? Why isn't the state a Cuckoo Fund?
Yeah.
The state should be the biggest Cuckoo Fund in the world.
Keeping it here, keeping the property, keeping everything here,
the public, protecting the taxpayer, and protecting the mental health of people involved. So why wouldn't they turn around? And actually, I'd be inclined to say they should have more powers and say, here, we're telling you we're buying the damn thing. We'll give you market value, and you compulsorily purchase it.
Yeah.
And we protect.
rather than paying hospital bills for 10,000 families around the country every day, it's just madness.
3,800 kids in hotel rooms and B&Bs,
that's soul destroying. For anyone,
it should be an embarrassment.
Yeah.
I'd be burying my head when in any cabinet meeting. I wouldn't be seeing the light of day, and that number is increasing. Figures only out the last couple of days show the numbers increasing again. So there's no halting to it. So we're not even stemming the flow. And then just a little reminder: the central bank, forget David Hall, has said last April 2018, 50% of people in long-term mortgage arrears will lose ownership of their home. That's 16,000 houses.
Yeah.
And if you go to the CSO and multiply it by 4, no one needs to be a mathematician to work out between 55 and 60,000 people. Yeah. That's 6 times more than are currently homeless. That's the central bank's numbers. That's not my numbers. Yeah. And that's family homes. Right. That's not Peter McVerry's numbers when he adds on, correctly so, the buy-to-lets. Yeah. So this is
just family homes, of course.
That's just family homes.
Yeah.
Doesn't include
12,000 buy-to-lets, isn't it?
Yeah, doesn't include them.
It's scary.
So if you know, that's a catastrophe waiting to happen.
David, if you were someone watching this video today, right, and the whole idea of askpaul and the purpose of this show on the money to try and bring good interviews or people that I think people need to hear speak, because people ask me questions all the time, but I don't know everything about everything rather. So it's great to get people like you in front of the camera and have a chat. What would you do? So let's say you're somewhere at home that's just getting pissed off watching this video. You're getting annoyed. I'm actually getting a little bit more tense to listen to you just with the figures, and I know it's a bad situation, but it feels a bit more worse than it did in the beginning. So you watch this video, what can somebody do? What can a punter at home, on Facebook on the couch, or on the train tonight going home, and they're watching this video hopefully, what can they do? Who do they write to? How do you get, because there seems to be, this is not, like we can have this chat time and time again. And what's the action that the general person can make? Forget about the elections and all that kind of stuff, because that's a different kind of fish. But what would you do? Or who would you write to? Or is there anything they can do to make an impact?
Well, I
have opinion?
Well, I have the benefit of being able to have a go, but at the same time, we're providing solutions in the background. Yeah. So there's an advantage to being able to do that at the same time. The most important thing is not to do what I don't want you to do, which is get tick, go on the piss, shout and roar at someone, and not get help. Yeah. So the most important thing and the most responsible thing and the best thing for people to do is, there's no point in coming back to me 2 or 3 years' time and saying, oh, I should have. Our job and our team's job, and that of MABs and that of the insolvency practitioners, is to help people. Yeah. That's all we do. A couple of weeks ago, we all gathered in the Ashling Hotel where we had a session there collectively with the insolvency service, and indeed we had the housing agency there to talk about mortgage rent. There was only 60 people there. Right. That's the total sum of people who are actively involved in helping people. So it's a very small community, which is very positive for those who are in help, who need help. So come forward, encourage those you know to come forward. Don't pester them, don't plague them. So when you come forward and get help, while you're getting help, then it's time to target the minister politically. Right. Not turn up outside his house. Yeah. No, I don't think anyone agrees with that. Utter rubbish. Yeah. Come and do something on a proactive basis by supporting various campaigns, sensible, logic, coherent campaigns, of which we will have over the coming months in relation to Vulture Funds and the coming weeks. And canvass your local politicians, ask their local TDs, ask your local councillors now, and the local European candidates, are they going to pledge to support, to choose families over Vulture Funds? Okay. Well, that's the one thing. That's brilliant. That's the one thing that everybody can do. Even whether you're arrears or not arrears, you're just sick of what's going on. They're all canvassing at the moment. Your doorstep that just say, who are you going to support? Are you going to support the housing and the families, or the Vulture Funds and these Cuckoo Funds? And see what the reply is. And if you're elected to the local authority, and the local councillors do amazing work, will the local councillors support using their land with approved housing bodies to build social and affordable houses? No one's looking for free houses here. They're looking for a home. They're looking for a home, not a hotel room, not a hostel, a home. David, that was absolutely fantastic, and as I always love talking to you, so thanks for joining me today, and it was much appreciated. Everybody, you've heard David's email. Just give us again actually the email, David. David@mortgageholders.ie. Okay, or else mortgageholders.ie directly onto the website. Please, if you are someone that's in that situation, do try and get some help and support from David and his team ASAP. David, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here today. No problem. Thank you. Cheers.